Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first ever episode of That's Debatable, Princeton's first and only sports show. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We have a very exciting show for you where we'll be recapping a great week in Princeton sports. And in honor of last week's Oscars, we'll be giving out some awards of our own. I'm Doug Newton, and here are your lovely panelists, Dave Capra, Peter Kunze. How you guys doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to give out these awards. You know, some of them are pretty clever, and I hope we do a better job than James Franco here today.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, we want to go to extreme measures to make the show the best possible. I won't be cutting off my arm, but maybe at a later date.
Anything we can do.
Yeah, a lot of commitment, guys. First, we'll take you inside the gate. We'll get you up to speed with what's happening in Princeton sports. And it's the beginning of March, which means it's time for playoff hockey. Guys, what's Princeton's situation entering the ECAC tournament?
After a 4-3 victory over RPI on Friday night, the men's hockey team had an opportunity to secure a bye against Union on Saturday, but were instead the victims of a 5-0 shellacking. Princeton finished in a tie for 4th place, but lost to tiebreakers and will be the 6th seed in the 12-team ECAC tournament. They'll host St. Lawrence, who the Tigers already beat twice this season in a best-of-3 series this weekend.
Unfortunately, the women's run in the ECAC tournament is over after losing the first 2 games of a best-of-3 series to Quinnipiac at Hobey Baker Rink. Sasha Sherry netted the only Princeton goal of the weekend. The Tigers end the season at 16-14-1 overall.
The beginning of March also means it's time for lacrosse. Guys, the Lax men and women opened their seasons. How did they fare?
The men traveled to Long Island to take on number 7 highly rated Hofstra. Despite an early lead 4-1, the Tigers came up short, losing 11-9, despite stellar efforts from junior goalie Tyler Fiorito and freshman Tom Schreiber, who scored his first 2 collegiate goals. They'll look to rebound against perennial powerhouse Johns Hopkins this Saturday.
The women did take on Johns Hopkins this weekend and squeaked out a victory 9-8. Jackie Gassaway scored the game-winning goal with 4 minutes to go, with Aaron Takahara, and Aaron Takahara won Ivy League Defensive Player of the Week for her 12-save performance in goal. The Tigers visit Duke on Saturday.
All right, guys, let's switch from the sticks to the rackets as the squash and tennis teams were active this week. Guys, how did they perform?
Both of the squash teams finished up their season in 3rd place nationally. The men beat Harvard in the conference quarterfinal, but fell to Yale in the semifinal and finished it up with the securing of the bronze in a 5-4 defeat of Rochester. Clay Blackiston won the momentum-shifting ace spot match by coming from behind twice. The women followed a similar pattern, defeating Penn in the Howe Cup quarterfinals, losing to Yale in the semis, and beating Trinity for 3rd place, also getting 3rd place nationally by that 5-4 margin. Senior Nikki Sakara clinched the team win in a memorable 5-set match. The singles championships are next weekend.
The men's tennis team beat up on NJIT, sweeping them 7-0 and not even losing a set along the way. Yohei Soji and Matt Spindler won in both singles and doubles. The Tigers will host St. John's and Stony Brook next weekend. The women split, losing to VCU on Saturday but beating Penn State on Sunday. Hillary Bartlett defeated an ITA-ranked opponent in first singles. They'll visit William & Mary and Maryland.
All right, guys, from the court to the pool as it's swimming championship meet season. Guys, how are the Tigers faring?
While the men were preparing for the Ivy League meet this coming weekend, the women came out on top in the Ivy League. Megan Waters was a star with 3 individual victories and 4 relay wins to cap off a pretty stellar career. Congrats to the Tigers, and good luck to those swimmers who move on to the NCAA championships.
On the track, there was similar success for Princeton. The men won the Ivy League Heps thanks in no small part to the prowess of junior Don Cabral, who was named Male Outstanding Performer for his wins in the 3,000 and 5,000 meters. The women also finished atop the H&A, edging Columbia by 5 points. The 4x800 relay, featuring Greta Feldman, Molly Higgins, Kristen Smoot, and Alexis McCallion, set an Ivy League record of 8 minutes and 43.15 seconds. Congrats to both teams.
All right, guys, let's move on to the basketball court where both teams were looking to continue their final push towards the NCAA tournament. On Friday, it was the men who faced the Cornell Big Red, who nearly took down Princeton in early February. In their first matchup, Princeton obviously escaped with a 57-55 win thanks to a Kareem Maddox jumper with 10 seconds left. This weekend, the Tigers turned the tables completely, dominating their way to an 84-66 win. And then on Saturday, the Tigers completed the weekend sweep with a 66-61 win over Columbia. With the win, Princeton improved to 22-5 overall and 10-1 in the Ivy League. The Tigers also finished a perfect 12-0 at Jadwin for the season, the first time a Tigers team had done so since 1998. Along with the victory over the Lions, the Tigers benefited from a 70-69 Yale victory over Harvard on Saturday night. With the Harvard loss, Princeton reclaimed first place in the Ivy League, holding a half-game lead over the Crimson. The Tigers will finish their season with 3 road games: at Dartmouth on Friday, at Harvard on Saturday, and at Penn on Tuesday. Guys, after another solid weekend from the Tigers, how do we feel about this team coming down the stretch?
Yeah, for me, it was a tale of two teams in both games. In that Cornell game, they could have beaten up pretty much a lot of teams in the NCAA tournament. They played extremely well. They shot the ball extremely well. They shot 62% from the field, 33 for 53. So a remarkable performance by them offensively. In that Columbia game, a different story. One of their worst offensive halves. They scored only 25 points in that half, and they're not going to be a lot of people playing like that. They got a close win against Columbia, but a lot of teams would have jumped on them earlier. And if Columbia hit a couple of close open layups, the game would have been out of reach early.
Yeah, I think you have to feel good about the Tigers overall coming down the stretch, but there's still definitely concerns about how consistent they're playing, both on the road and at home, and what kind of performance they're going to turn in if they make it to the tournament, or even if they can make it to the tournament based on their performance. They really need to step up and give a good, consistent baseline performance.
And something that's going to be important here is that senior leadership that showed over this weekend. Dan Mavrades and Kareem Maddox, 2 of the starting seniors, just performed extremely well, didn't let their team lose after really taking this team back from the Joe Scott years. They were all the way down. They came back up, and they've put in a lot of work, and they weren't going to let a team like Columbia take it away from them. And you saw that with Dan Mavrades scoring 14 of the last 18 points in that Columbia game.
We should also mention Kareem Maddox was named Ivy League Player of the Week thanks to his performance over the weekend. Guys, obviously 3 more games left for the Tigers, all on the road. What are the chances the Tigers finish off this dream season and clinch an Ivy League title and an NCAA berth with 3 more wins? I'm
going to go kind of low on this one, 40%. I don't think that Princeton will sweep the next 3 games. I think they'll probably lose up at Harvard. It's really tough to play on the road in the Ivy League, and especially with Harvard. Harvard has an extremely talented team this year, and I just don't see them winning up there. And I think playing at Penn's going to be a really tough game too. So I don't see them sweeping. I do think they will win the Ivy League, but I don't think they're going to sweep the next 3 games.
Yeah, 3 straight games is going to be hard. I don't think anyone is going to give Dartmouth much of a chance here against Princeton in that first game. They only have 1 win in the Ivy League. They're really not much of a team compared to Princeton right now. But at Harvard, at Penn, it's going to be tough, but they have the senior leadership to do it. One of the things that I think is most important is not a basketball thing. It's midterms we're all dealing with right now. And to have to play these 2 games the weekend before midterms, whether the players aren't thinking about it or not, it's going to play a factor in terms of their overall preparation, and I think that's something to look at in terms of this schedule.
Yeah, 3 games in 5 days, and we should also mention Harvard hasn't lost at home this season yet, a perfect 12-0. The Princeton women's basketball team inched closer to their 2nd straight Ivy League title with a pair of impressive wins on the road in New York. On Friday, the Lady Tigers went up to Ithaca and dominated Cornell on their way to a 71-44 victory. On the next night, the Tigers coasted their way to another double-digit win, beating Columbia by the score of 65-52. Senior Addie Messier led the way with 17 points as the Tigers improved to 21-4 overall and 10-1 in the Ivy League. The Tigers currently hold a 2-game lead over both Yale and Harvard, who each have 3 losses in the Ancient Eight. Guys, with sophomore Naveen Rashid still out with a knee injury, which Tiger needs to step up down the stretch?
Yeah, Naveen Rashid's now been out 13 games. She was their star at the beginning of this year. She was their star last year, took them to the NCAA tournament. But they've been pretty good without her. They're now 12-1 without her in the last 13 games. And they've been doing pretty well. They got a lot of inside-outside talent. Addie Messier in particular, for me, is the person that's been stepping up largest, leads the team in scoring with 17 points. She's shooting a ridiculous 48% from three-point land. When you have that kind of shooting outside, I think it's very important, especially in that NCAA tournament last year, where the shots just weren't falling at all. I think with the senior leadership of Addie Messier, these girls have a chance.
Yeah, I'm going to take Lauren Edwards on this one, a guard there, really being able to contribute, some deep shooting and stuff like that. I think that's going to be really important down the stretch, and particularly if they want to make an impact in the NCAA tournament.
We should also mention, upcoming this weekend, the Tigers' last 2 home games. It'll be senior night on Saturday for Addie Messier and Crystal Hill. Addie Messier, who leads the team in scoring, assists, 2nd in steals, 3rd in blocks, does it all for the Tigers. And also, if they win 2 out of 3 games, their 5th title in program history. So Courtney Banghart with the 2nd straight title, Ivy League champions, could be looking very good.
Pretty good season so far.
Okay, guys, 2 wins in the last 3 games, pretty reasonable. What are the chances the Tigers make it to the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I think they definitely have the easier road, obviously, because they have a bigger lead than the men do. I think they're going to take it. I think that they're just too good with this in this Ivy League. And when you look at it, they don't have Naveen Rashid, their best player, and they've still been doing a fantastic job in the Ivy League. Just consider what they would have been with Naveen Rashid here in this season. And I like the women to get there. I think they'll win at least 2, if not 3. So I think they're steal their ticket to the big dance.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. I mean, 2 games at home. I mean, again, I think Princeton has kind of shown to be, the elite team there in the Ivy League, even without Naveen Rashid. So I think it'll be a pretty easy task for them to win the Ivy.
All right, now we'll take you outside the gate, where we'll leave the orange bubble to discuss pressing topics from around the sports world. In honor of last Sunday's Oscars, we'll be giving out the Bill Bradleys in tribute of one of Princeton's finest, which we will award to success and achievement around the NBA following the league's trade deadline. Now, here's how it works. With each award, Dave and Peter will respond with their nominees, and I'll be doling out the trophies. So, to our first award, it's for Best Costume Design, given out to the player whose stock was helped most by switching teams or changing costumes per se. Guys, who are your nominees for the Bradley?
I'm going to go with a dark horse here, and I'm going to go with Corey Brewer, former player with the Minnesota Timberwolves, getting traded to the Knicks, then getting bought out of his contract, and then signing with the Dallas Mavericks. If you add that up, he went from a cellar-dwelling team in the Minnesota Timberwolves to a playoff contending team and potentially a NBA champion quality team in the Dallas Mavericks. So I think it's a pretty good choice there.
Yeah, I think to me this one's pretty obvious. I'm taking Melo. Melo's been trying for months now to get on the Knicks in every single way possible, whether that was reeling in the nets, making him problems on his Twitter feed, whatever it is. He finally got what he wanted. He's in the Big Apple. He's going to make millions of dollars in endorsements. They're actually playing pretty well now, so I'm taking Melo as the best costume design.
I think I'm going to have to side with Dave on this one. Melo, he's potential in the playoffs now, and he's making a lot of money. And not only that, he's making his wife happy. Lala Vasquez, I think, wanted to go to New York to help her entertainment career. All right, our next award goes for Best Original Screenplay. We're giving this one out to the best story in the NBA this season. Guys, what storyline is your nominee for the Bradley?
I'm going to go with the migration of big NBA stars from small market teams out west, from the Utah Jazz and the Denver Nuggets for one, to big market teams, the Knicks and the Nets. I mean, that's been the huge thing all season. The Melo trade buzz, will he get traded or not? Then finally he goes. The team starts to get dismantled, and then right after that, then Deron Williams gets traded, and there's a lot of talk about how this will affect the upcoming CBA talks with the NBA and their potential impending lockout.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I'm going with the Super Friends on this one. I think the Miami Heat have been the story of this NBA season ever since the decision happened. I think it's going to be just really interesting to see what this team can do in the playoffs. It's never really been done before. They've never really had this sort of makeup of a team. They're 43-17 right now, only a game and a half back. The top 3 guys are averaging just under 70 points per game. Their fourth person is Eddie House, averaging 7 points per game. I think that's obviously the weak point, and that's going to be the storyline for me going forward.
Yeah, I'm going to have to side with Dave again. I think the Heat, nothing ever has been quite to the public scrutiny as a team like the Miami Heat. Stars have forced their way to big places before. You see Wilt Chamberlain going to LA. Shaq did the same thing back in the 90s. It's nothing new that players want to go where they want to go.